Betty pulls out an axe to threaten Candy at the beginning of Love and Death episode 4. Candy is asked to leave and never return to their life. Candy assures Betty that she will depart permanently out of concern. She says she'll be returning to drop Alyssa off one more time, but Betty urges her to keep the girl for the night, take her bikini, and leave the axe next to the door. Just before Candy is about to depart, Betty gives her some peppermints to present to Alyssa, but not before Candy apologizes to Betty once more. Suddenly filled with wrath, Betty grabs up the axe, shoves Candy inside the laundry room, and makes an attempt to kill her. Betty tries to strike Candy with the axe after telling her she can't have Allan. Candy's toe gets cut when Betty bumps against her foot. However, there is a jump cut in the episode as Candy, freshly showered, exits the Gore home. She limps from the wound on her forehead and is bleeding. Candy manages to get in her car and head home. With every doorbell and phone ring, the dogs on the Gore house's balcony begin to become agitated. Candy calms herself down by putting her clothing in the washer and dryer and is happy to get the blood off of them. Candy takes another shower, puts her old jeans in the dryer, changes into a new pair of jeans, and then returns to church, this time donning tennis shoes. While there, Candy begins telling everyone a well-practiced tale. She describes how she left for Betty's house and became distracted, then performed errands before returning to church. Candy returns to her routine for the remainder of the day and drives Alyssa and her children home. When Candy phones Pat to let him know Alyssa will be joining them at the movies, he makes him suspicious by rehashing the same scripted scenario. Sherry also observes her irregular behavior and inquires as to what might be wrong, but she responds by stating that she is busy. When Allan tries to call Betty, he is unable to do so. He requests that his neighbors visit Betty and the house. Candy lies and says Betty was alright before leaving the Gore home that afternoon when Allan calls to inquire about his knowledge of Betty's well-being. The men enter the Gore home through the back door, which was unlocked by chance. When they finally find Betty's body in the laundry room, they determine that she had been shot because there is so much blood all over the place. They remove Bettany and dial the police. Allan receives the news of Betty's death over the phone from one of the men, and after being shocked, he calls Candy to tell her about the murder. After hanging up with him, Candy starts to cry as the police show up and begin to look around the crime scene. When they phone Allan, they find out that Candy, who had been to pick up Alyssa's bikini, was the last person to see Betty alive. The following morning, Allan calls Candy from the airport to inquire on Alyssa. He informs her that because the police were aware of Candy's visit to the Gore home, rumors of the murder are now circulating throughout the community. Candy finds out as a result that the police are aware that Betty was killed with an axe. Given the footprints left at the crime scene, the police determine that the murder was not premeditated and that a woman committed the crime. When Allan returns home at last, he is devastated to learn that Betty was slain. He sobs and accuses himself of failing to support her. Alyssa is dropped up to her house by Candy and Pat, and Allan begs the couple to remain while she conveys the news to Alyssa. The young girl is in disbelief. The congregation is speaking to Dawn, who appears to be informed about the law, the following day in church. Candy requests a private conversation with him and inquires as to whether she should be concerned given that she was Betty's second-to-last sighting. Dawn reassures Candy that since Betty was brutally murdered, a powerful man most likely carried it out. Following this discussion, the church members congregate at the Gore family house where a woman asks Candy to put some food in the freezer, the same room where Betty was killed. When Candy does this, the dogs outside the rear door start barking at her. When Betty's mother tells Candy that the dogs have been barking at everyone who enters the room, Candy is surprised because she remembers how the dogs witnessed the murder. Candy prepares to go to the police station for her questioning. She gives a reasonably accurate account of what happened to the police, even lying that she was wearing tennis shoes. She also tells the police that she just stayed at Betty's place for 15 minutes before departing. Candy destroys the slippers she wore to Betty's house when she gets home. Ron is in charge of the memorial service for Betty at the church. While Candy maintains a neutral expression, Ron calls the person who killed Betty a monster and a horrible person. Allan is questioned by the police regarding the potential murder suspects. They inquire as to whether Betty was having an affair or had any adversaries. Allan tells a lie during the interrogation, but later that night, he admits that he did have a relationship with Candy Montgomery.